welcome back to Podcast on Fifth Ave. We didn't record last week because Wednesday was the start of the free agency period this summer, and it was a wild first day. I know, Taylor, you were pretty busy with everything that was going on. The Penguins definitely made some moves. We can kind of just go move by move, but they started by signing Jan Rutta from the Tampa Bay Lightning. So tell us a little bit about him, because he's a defenseman and we know that the Penguins have a surplus of those. So tell us why that's a good thing that they brought him in.
I mean, I think, we'll get into like the trades and everything after, but they've obviously made a lot of moves to improve their defense. And one of the big things we've seen that they wanted to do is get bigger, add more size, guys who do play a little bit more physical on the back end. And Rutta, he is 6'3", 200 pounds. So, they locked him up for 3 years. Pretty, reasonable cap hit, $2.75 million. So he definitely has some size. He's going to be 34 when the deal expires. So a little on the older side. I did see Cap Friendly had a list of the youngest teams in the league by average age and oldest. And the Penguins are the oldest team in the league at 30 exactly, 30, flirty and thriving. 13 and 30, okay. But anyway.
Took me a minute, but I got you.
Rutta, he is an older guy. He does kind of bump that average up. But that move gave them 9 potential NHL defensemen, which is quite a lot of defensemen. And we could probably go into like trades after, but because they signed him, and at the time that gave them 9. That gave them him, Letang, Devlin, Matheson, Marino, Pettersson, Friedman, Ruido, and Joseph. And then, so, Ron Hextall talked on that day, and he said, he was asked, bringing in Rutta, because Rutta is a guy too that he's naturally a righty. They really didn't have much depth on the right side where you could afford to really move out a right-handed guy. So Rutta, when he came in, we're like, oh, maybe, now they can move out a righty, free up some cap space, put it toward the forward. Rutta also does play on the left side, so it really gave him a lot of flexibility for a trade. So Hextall speaks on after a couple hours into free agency, and he's asked, you have 9 defensemen. Is it fair to say that a trade is coming? And Hextall's like, yeah, well, we're not going to go into training camp with 9 defensemen, so that's a fair assumption. And so then they make 2 trades, and they trade out 2 defensemen for 2 defensemen and a forward, giving them 9 defensemen.
So they didn't really. They slid a lot around for pretty much the same thing, and you can. There are definitely upgrades. There is one thing I want to say about the age, though, because people are getting very worked up about the fact that the Penguins are an older team, and that it just is what it is right now for the state of the franchise, because their 3 core players are on the older side, and you're not just going to move out all these old players for younger, faster guys who are already developed and aren't going to cost a fortune to bring in. It just seems a little bit, I don't know, whenever people are like, how are they going to compete with Colorado? I don't know. But it's not about playing the same game as Colorado. It's about playing their best game and figuring out how they can beat teams with the team that they have built. And so my initial reservation whenever they brought more defensemen in was like, what the heck is going on? It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of method to this. But Danny Shirey wrote about the defensemen that they brought in, and it at least made me feel a lot better, because the guys that they're getting are the guys that they got, that it happened. There's a lot more offensive upside than the guys that they lost, because Mike Matheson, he was always kind of a wild card. You never really know what game you were going to get from him. And John Marino's offensive production kind of dropped off. And he could be great. He could reach the potential that they saw in him, or he might not. And So let's talk about the guys that they did bring in place of those two.
Yeah, so the trades, first the Marino one, they sent him to New Jersey. By the way, did you see when he did his media availability with New Jersey and they tweeted the video? They called him Josh, like in the tweet. Welcome, Josh Marino. That's not his name.
That's
So
definitely
they
not his
traded
name.
Josh Marino to the Devils for Ty Smith, a defenseman, and a third-round pick in this coming draft. Which third-round pick, by the way, that's a pretty decent pick, and it is a deeper draft next year, so that's a good pickup. Ty Smith, a former first-round pick. He's on an entry-level deal, so that was the first move they made. That did free up a lot of cap space because Marino was making about $4 million. Ty Smith just under $9 million because he is on the third and final year of his entry-level deal. His first 2 years he spent entirely in the NHL. He's never been in the minors. But because he only has those 2 years pro, he is waiver exempt, I believe, for 36 more games, so until he plays 36 more NHL games. So Ty Smith, he didn't have a great season last year in New Jersey, and he acknowledged that when he spoke to us the other day. He is someone too that does have experience on both sides. He is a lefty. He primarily played on the left in New Jersey. I did ask him about it, if he had experience on the right side, and he said in juniors he actually played on the right side about 95% of the time, and then like World Junior stuff like that. So yeah, Ty Smith, he is another guy who gives them that versatility, but also with them having so like what I was saying in Hex, I was like, we're not going to camp with 9 defensemen. And then they make these 2 trades and they have 9 defensemen, and he's like, well, I'd be fine if we go into a camp with 9 defensemen. So I don't know.
What are you saying, Ron?
I don't know. It's coming. I still feel like maybe another move gets made to cap space because you still got to re-sign Kapanen. But anyway, if they're going in with this many defensemen, some guys are going to have to be sent down. Ty Smith, even though he has never been in the minors before, he is exempt from waivers, so I feel like he's a candidate for Wilkes-Barre if they need to send people down, just because he is the only option. Like, Joseph is no longer exempt from waivers. Ty Smith is the only guy who can be sent down without having to pass the waivers. So I feel like he might not start in Pittsburgh, but again, I couldn't tell you. Like, when they made the 2 trades and they still have 9 defensemen, people were like tweeting at me like, what's the plan? Like, can you explain? I was like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. No, I still think, like you said, they definitely upgraded the defense. And the moves they made, it does give them more versatility, and they did get bigger on the back end for sure. So they did improve the defense, and they are bigger, which is what they wanted, but they still have 9. So I don't know what the long plan is for some of these guys.
It doesn't quite make sense because you have that. John Marino's gone, Ty Smith is in, and now Mike Matheson's gone, but he's also been replaced by a defenseman.
Yeah.
And again, upgrade, but like questionable.
I did joke, like, when they had 9 defensemen and people were like, what's the long-term plan? I was like, well, Mike Matheson is finally going to get to play forward like we all wanted to see. Like, how often did he try, like, wraparound goals? Like, especially last year.
Yeah,
he did score on 1, but he wanted it so bad. But anyway, Mike Matheson, you talked about it. Like, the Mike Matheson experience, you kind of never know what you're going to get. But, yeah, so they traded him. First of all, I never talked about him as like a candidate. I think we were more so focused on like Pettersson, just because we're like, who's going to take Matheson's contract?
Yeah, that was the thing.
But so they were able to unload him. I mean, good for him going to like his hometown team too. At least he ends up in a good spot. But they do get pretty much, so they bring in Pedri. Pedri's 34 years old. He has 4 years left. And he has a $6.25 million cap hit, so they're getting a kind of a bad contract back. He's now the second highest paid player on the Penguins behind Crosby. So they get him back, and they get Ryan Poehling back, who's a forward. And so Petri, he talked about how he prefers to play with. So he's like a offensive, like, like puck moving defenseman. He
Mm-hmm.
prefers to play with someone who's more of a defensive defenseman. I feel like Petri and Pettersson that's probably going to be a pairing.
Okay.
So I feel like that's what we're going to see, and then maybe like Ruda going into the season, and that kind of gives you. I think Ruda would have to play his offside.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we don't know where this is going as far as like trades go because they have 9. But if that
Right.
is like your 6, I think it's an upgrade. And then
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Paling, the forward they get back, he's almost exclusively played center for Montreal, and they don't need a center because Crosby, Malkin, Bluger, Carter are your 4.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I looked. He played maybe a handful of games for Montreal at wing, but then I did also ask him too when he spoke. Does he have experience at wing like before that? And he said, yeah, like World Juniors, and then also like a little bit before that. I think he said he played mostly wing in college. So he hasn't done it a whole lot at the NHL level, but he says he has a comfort level with the position and like an awareness of what it takes in that adjustment process to become comfortable. It's more about learning like the defensive side of the
Mm-hmm.
game, like the responsibilities changing and really focusing on those. So he's someone too that could be a bottom 6 forward option. They do have a lot of those too now, but so yeah, he's someone that could end up making the roster too, or he could like be an extra. So there's really a lot up in the air right now.
Guess we'll see what happens as we get closer to training camp. There were a couple other moves that the Penguins made, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we're back. The Penguins also made quite a few significant signings since the last time we recorded. They signed Kris Letang, they signed Rickard, Rakell, and they also signed Evgeni Malkin. Didn't look like that one was going to happen at the very end. There was a lot of back and forth on that one, but all 3 of those guys were critical pieces for the team that they're trying to push into next season. So the fact that they were able to get all of them on longer term deals, but deals nonetheless, they're sticking around and are going to be part of the roster, which is exciting. I know that Kris Letang took a discount to stay, and Evgeni Malkin probably could have made more on the open market as well. So the fact that they wanted to stay, that says a lot about them and the team that they believe the Penguins have right now. So yeah, give us the details. Just give us a quick rundown of what those contracts look like.
Yeah, so Malkin, Letang, they have the same cap hit, 6.1 million. Malkin for 4 years, Letang for 6 years, and then Rakell is 6 years at 5. Malkin, full no movement clause. Letang has a full one for the first 4, and then he has a modified no trade clause for the final 2. So they get some security, and then something I believe we talked about on here is like what a 35 plus contract is.
Mm,
Basically, if a player is signing a contract when he's at least 35 years old, it's a multi-year deal, and it is either front loaded or it has signing bonuses beyond year 1. Then if that player retires in the middle of the contract, their cap hit doesn't go away or get reduced at
mm,
all. And you can't, you can buy them out, but it doesn't do anything for the money. Like their cap hit does not get reduced at all. So
yeah.
Letang and Malkin, the way theirs is structured is that they're true 35 plus contracts. So if they retire in the middle of it, you can't, their cap hits don't go away and you can't buy them out. Jeff Carter's is also the same way for
Okay.
years, which is insane.
That is
But
wild.
they structured it that way to give him that protection. So Letang and Malkin, I mean, you figure this keeps them Penguins for life.
Mm-hmm.
And, the term, I think for both of them is more than what we expected. Because,
Yeah.
like, Malkin, when he was asked on cleanout day how much longer he wanted to play, I believe he said, 3 or 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Letang said 5 easily. I don't think this is the term that the Penguins necessarily wanted to give them, but given the cap situation, they gave them more years to keep their cap hit down, which, I mean, Hextall, I know he gets a lot of flack from fans, but I think he deserves a ton of credit, because I don't think anyone thought that they'd be able to keep Russ, Malkin, Letang, and Rakell. I think, in the beginning, the thought was, like, either Russ or Rakell, or there's like, maybe they keep 3, probably 2, maybe 3, no way 4, and they kept all of them. Which is great. I mean, you just think about what the top 6 is going to look like, next year. Rakell, we didn't really get to see him in the playoffs because, he got hurt, but in the regular season, he had great chemistry with Crosby.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see them play together again so badly. So badly.
You can keep them together. You can put, Rust with Malkin.
Mm-hmm.
Rakell wasn't bad with Malkin too, in like their brief time together. It was a really short sample size for either of those lines, but it just gives them a lot of flexibility in the top 6. Rakell is also a guy that can play on either wing, so there's a lot they could do here. But it just, I mean, Hextall definitely deserves props for getting these guys all signed. And like you said, Malkin, I think, it was, he told the team he was going to test free agency, and this was like coming down to the wire. And then it was like 24 hours later, he signs. He didn't.
That was a whirlwind.
Yeah. And, Hextall had asked, what changed, to get him, 24 hours. Hextall was like, I don't know. I did, like Dan reported that, Malkin's family played a big part of it too, that, like Malkin's wife wanted, even though she lives in Florida most of the year, didn't want to leave Pittsburgh. So, I mean, that's big. It's so funny. I don't know if you saw the video, but like, so Letang, he signed on draft day, on the day of the first round, and so because he announced their pick, which is really cool, because it is Montreal and everything has to be done in French. I don't know who else in the organization, like, how quickly can we get PO here? No, let's just sign Letang, get it over with. So Louis Domingue was actually there, by the way. Side story, at the draft. Like, oh
my goodness,
this was like before, and it was because this was like before Letang had gotten there. So it's like, is he here as like the emergency backup,
just in case?
Just in case, like, I don't know, because I ran into him on the draft floor, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" Like, we did a double take, and he's like, "I live here." And it's like at the Bell Center. But, so I don't know what he was doing. There.
Oh my
goodness. But anyway, so Letang, and he's there with his son Alex, who, by the way, he's like big now. Like, Alex, remember when he was like a little thing?
No.
He's like, what, 8 years old now? Anyway,
that's so sad.
He has a press conference after the Penguins make their pick and all, and he comes to the podium, and he has Alex with him. And Alex sits at the podium with him. And if, like, you remember, like, St. Louis, the All-Star game in 2020, it was like we were asking Letang questions, and he had, like, Alex on his lap, and Alex just started answering. Like, he was, 6 years old at the time? Like, we were not asking Alex. But Alex just took over, and Letang was like, all right, and then, like, put him down, the little pod and walked off. Oh, my
goodness.
And his kid handled his media availability.
Incredible.
So he had Alex up there. Alex is a little older. He's not doing that now. But, like, the way these work is you make, like, eye contact with PR, raise your hand, and then she, like, puts you in the order. Then you get the mic and all. So, like, I text Jen Bolano, the Penguins PR woman. I'm like, is Alex taking questions? Like, can I ask Alex a question? Like, he's up there. She's like, yeah, go for it. I'm like, cool. I was like, consider my hand raised then. So I get the mic, and I'm like, this one's for Alex. And like Letang, you immediately thought that was like really funny that Alex is getting a question. But I just asked him, like, what do you think about your dad's deal staying in Pittsburgh for 6 more years? And he's like, well, and like the whole time he's talking, Letang is talking to him in French, and I see someone had like translated that like what Letang is saying to him is like don't say what we actually say at home. Don't say what we actually And so Alex Letang, he's like, well, my whole family, we wanted to go to another spot. And like everyone's like, why? And like laughing.
Oh my goodness.
And then he's like, but that's not it. He's like, that's not all. And he's like, you know, he talked about how he gets to stay here with his friends and all, and so, you know, he's happy. And then Letang takes the mic back and he's like, do you want a translation for that? I'm like, I guess. And he's like,
yeah,
what he means to say is that we were preparing him for the possibility that we might have to go to another spot. So not that he wanted to test free agency or anything, at least that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
But you know, they were telling Alex, you know, we might have to go to another city. So Alex was like looking up, you know, different cities. I follow Letang's trainer on Instagram, and he posts a lot of stories of like Letang working out, and Alex is in a different team's shirt every day. Like,
oh my goodness.
Like the day before he signed, Alex is like walking around in like a Carolina Hurricanes shirt. I'm like, huh.
He was a little too prepared.
Carolina, like Nashville the next day. So.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. It sounded like Alex Letang needed to like cancel a meeting with like a realtor or something. He was looking into other like but yeah, so they're sticking around. Rakell, you know, he's packing up, moving here. I follow like him and his wife on Instagram too. They're still in Anaheim. They're not even going home this summer because they just had a baby like a month ago.
Not that long ago.
They're coming here. They're bringing their dogs. How funny, though, that the day Rakell signs is the day that they change Heinz Field's name. Because I do remember, because his dog,
yeah.
His dog is Heinz, and his dog is named after Heinz Field. I remember last season he was
That's a bummer.
Yeah, he was talking about how, like, oh, next season I want to come back and bring Heinz to Heinz Field. And it's too late. Either he's got to change his dog's name or just cancel the plans. But
yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a bummer.
I know a lot of people were like, oh, they're bringing back a lot of the same team. They're just gonna get bounced in the first round again. But I mean, they make it out of the first round both of the last 2 years with even average goaltending. So
yeah. Yep, and that's the thing. Like, there were a lot of injuries that happened at weird times, and then guys got healthy at weird times, and the goaltending collapse last year, and then the goaltending injuries this year. There were just so many freak things.
Yeah.
It was not a result, and even before that, like the only series or the two series I think in the last however many years that probably were not you know, the best showing of the team were in 2019 when they got swept by the Islanders, and then in the weird bubble against Montreal. Those were like the two where it was like, who is this team?
Yeah.
But even in the 2018 series against the Capitals, which that was the last playoff season that they won a series in, like, that was just puck luck. Like,
if Tom Kuhnhackl doesn't hit that post,
exactly,
they might three-peat. That was So that wasn't a bad year. 2019, obviously awful, and even 2020 in the bubble. That's hard to like.
It was so weird.
Montreal shouldn't have been that good. Like nothing was normal.
No,
there were months off, like another training camp, and then, you know, those little like exhibition games, and then right into the playoffs. Nothing was normal. There were a lot of weird things that happened that year. Islanders, Jari was obviously awful in 2021. Even aside from that, the passing the puck straight up the middle, turning it over, and then Louis Domingue. Louis Domingue was not a bad number 3 goalie. I think any other team would have been screwed if you put your there's a reason a number 3 is the number 3. Like if they were capable of starting a playoff series and doing well, they would not be,
it would be with another
they
team.
would not be signing to a number 3 role. Now another signing that they made on to start free agency, I think they did upgrade the number 3 position. Louis Domingue, Louis Domingue, he signed in New York. He loved the spicy pork and broccoli he had there. He's not it sold him. But they bring in Dustin Tokarski, who played
Mm-hmm.
extended games for Buffalo last season.
Yeah.
So, Louis Domingue, he did have, some NHL experience. Not really anything extended like that. At
Right.
least not recently. He was very much a, career number 3 backup borderline guy. Dustin Tokarski actually has, a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
experience. And, this is his second time in the organization. He was here a couple years ago. When Dustin Tokarski was here before, he signed an AHL contract with Wilkes-Barre. Jari and Murray were the guys in Pittsburgh. Casey DeSmith was around, and it was Casey DeSmith's first year where he needed waivers. And the thinking at the time was that they might trade Jari, but then when they were when they didn't, and they're keeping Jari, the thought was like, okay, well, because Casey had been in the NHL the year before, everyone was like, well, Casey's not going to
Oh my
clear.
God, that's right.
Everyone was like, Casey's not going to clear through waivers. They're going to lose him to waivers. And so
Wow, that's right.
because I talked to him at training camp that year, and he had turned down NHL deals from other teams to sign an AHL contract with Wilkes-Barre. And the thinking was at the time was that when Casey gets claimed, then he won't be the number 3 goalie. Then they will sign Tokarski to an NHL deal. Tokarski will be the number 3. But then Casey ended up clearing, and then so Tokarski and DeSmith were the tandem in Wilkes-Barre that year. And they showed
Wow, yeah.
Emil Larmy was down there, and that's another big thing. Like Tokarski, going on to Wilkes-Barre this year, he's going to be with either Philip Lindbergh, who's pretty much an AHL rookie this year because he was hurt all last year, Taylor Gauthier, who is going to be a rookie, and then another young guy like Tommy Napier, who is on an AHL contract with Wilkes-Barre. So they needed to bring in a number 3 like that to be a mentor, and he's been in that kind of role before. So that's another like underrated move to upgrading the 3. Hopefully we never see him.
We shouldn't have to,
ideally,
but you never know.
Ideally you don't see your number 3 goalie, but given the Penguins' injury luck, when I don't know, Casey blows his groin out next year, just before the playoffs, Tokarski is an upgrade over Louis Domingue. I'll have to put his Chinese food order is at training camp.
Yeah, we need to know. That's the hard-hitting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
My God. Well, yeah, the NHL draft also happened, so let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can talk about the Penguins picks. And we're back. The NHL draft was, 2 weeks ago now? Was it already that long ago? My goodness, the Penguins had a first-round pick. They used it on a defenseman, Owen Pickering. So bringing another pick-related last name to the city of Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's Pickens. It's overload. But that, by all standards, everything that I've seen was a really, really, really good pick for the Penguins, and they were not expecting him to fall that far.
Yeah.
Right?
First of all, I think every whoever taught scout, GM, whatever says that about every pick they've ever made. Like, we can't believe this.
Fair.
So fair. I don't know. I have to say, when we did our draft preview, I said the guy I think they should pick and who was most interesting one to me was Ivan Miroshnichenko, the Russian forward who had cancer.
Okay.
The Caps took him the pick before, so would they have taken him if he had been around? I don't know, but
yeah.
Owen Pickering, yeah. Again, it seems like they're the front office. They're making a concerted effort to get bigger, and he's 6'4".
Sheesh.
You look at him though; he is very lanky. He's 180 pounds. That's what he's listed at, and that's because.
And he's fast, right?
Yeah, good skater. I can pull up. So, Nick Pryor, who's the director of amateur scouting, he said he took major strides defensively and offensively this year. They're excited about his two-way game going forward. He skates extremely well for his size. He's grown a lot over the past couple of years. And so one of the reasons he's such a good skater and why he's also lanky is because he went through a massive growth spurt. So he went from 5'7" to 6'4" in a matter of 3 years. like that's huge. Like that's massive. Like so he went from like a very undersized defenseman to like now an actual like a guy who brings some size.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
He talked about this at development camp. That when he was smaller, he had to be that kind of like agile guy, evading opponents, and so that's how he kind of got to be skating one of his strengths, and then he shot up to 6'4".
Yeah.
So he is very lanky. You look at him; he's very skinny, but that's also because he's still filling out. Like, he was short not that long ago. So they're not,
not that long
they're not concerned about that at all. His ability to put on size, muscle, whatever. He has time. He's gonna go back to he plays for the Swift Current Broncos in the WHL. The way the junior leagues and the NHL, they have an agreement where a player who is junior age can't go pro and play in the minors until he's 20. So for someone like Pickering, until he's that age, his options are the NHL or back to juniors. This was like a debate they had like with Sprong like a couple years ago. Like, do they bring him here and then they end up sending him back? So Pickering, that's what's going on with him. So he'll probably go back to Swift Current in the WHL for 2 more years, and then go pro. So we're a ways away from even seeing him play in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah.
So he has time to put on size. That's not really much of a concern. Very articulate, personable guy. Listening to him talk, it was like surprising how comfortable he was, and how much personality he had in these interviews. I feel like a lot of the younger kids, you don't see, like, sometimes they're nervous. But Pickering was like very comfortable, very funny, giving like thoughtful answers. I talked to him at development camp. Did you see like the flag football game they played in development camp?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Incredible.
I asked like Judd Caulfield about that, like at the end of like a real interview, just trying to get like a fun like nugget for the story I was writing. But then like a couple guys around him all started like chiming in and like like,
oh my god, amazing,
like, telling you who was good. Like Tommy Napier is a great quarterback. Sam Hood was kicking 40-yard field goals. And they were critiquing. So like Owen Pickering was playing running back. They say he holds the ball like LaShawn McCoy, like one arm, like far away from his body. Yeah, but he's like a skinny guy. And then Judd Caulfield was like, yeah, we didn't have much ball security out there. And then so I was Pickering, and I was like, what's your response? And he's like, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm gonna come back. I apologize. I'm gonna come back better next year. So they play flag football again. He's working on that too. But yeah, just a good pick and like a great personality too.
That's always exciting.
They run down the 4th round. So they took a goalie, Sergei Murashov. He was the only one of the picks who was not at development camp, and we didn't get to see because he's Russian. Obviously, some difficulties with bringing those guys over right now, but then also a part of it is those teams are having like training camps right now in Russia. They start their camps very, very early. Like Kirill Tankov wasn't there too. He's their other Russian prospect, the forward, but like he's having training camp with SKA right now. Murashov, he plays for the Locomotive in the system. He's coming from the junior league. 6 foot, that's kind of small for a goalie. Something interesting about him, he catches with his right hand. That is very rare. Like right catching goalies anywhere except the Penguins system. They keep finding them.
Like, yeah, it seems like they do. Like Taylor, they just keep popping up.
Taylor Gauthier catches right. Alex Doria, who's a free agent but was a prospect, the past couple of years, he catches right. Louis Domingue catches right. It's like, why keep finding these guys? Like, are you targeting righties? I've asked before, like, is there like a benefit? Like, shooters aren't used to shooting on righties, and they say no. So I don't know how they keep getting right-handed catching goalies, but it was like there's 7 of them that maybe played in the NHL, the backup or starter all last season. Like it's rare, and then the Penguins are like half righties in the system. So Murashov again, he's Russian, so no telling when he's gonna be here. A benefit though, so normally you draft a guy to college, a guy to juniors, and you have a certain amount of years to sign him. That's dependent on like the NHL's like agreements with like those bodies. So like Finland, they have an agreement. So you sign a guy out of like that league, you have a certain amount of years. the NHL and Russia have no agreement, transfer agreement like that. So if you draft a Russian, you have them forever. At least their rights until you move them. Like Pachursky, the goalie who played one game for the Penguins in 08, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
The Penguins still have his rights because he's Russian and you don't lose him.
Dang.
So Murashov, it could be a while, which is fine because they have Lindbergh, they have Gauthier, and you have Leo Blomqvist in Finland. Like they're stacked at goalie. So he can keep developing in Russia, come over, maybe be the next Igor.
Okay.
We're seeing a lot of good Russian goalies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fifth round, Zam Plant. What a name. He's coming from high school in Minnesota. He's smaller. He's a center. He's 5'9". He models his game after Jay Gensel. And you look.
Nice.
I know Danny did a good article on this. If you look on the site, like that's not just Zam saying that. You break down the film. There are a lot of similarities between the two of them in their games. So, we didn't get to see. He was at development camp. We didn't get to see him because he did have shoulder surgery 8 weeks ago. Still recovering. He's gonna go back to the USHL next year, and then he's only 17. And then he's gonna go to college. So another any of these guys that are picked this late, it's gonna be forever until we see them.
Yeah.
Zam. People asked if his name is short for Zamboni. Not. I did talk to him in development camp, and I was like, "Hey, how often do you get asked if your name is Zamboni?" He's like, "Literally every day." And then so when I would pass him like in the hallways outside the locker room after that, I would, Zamboni, like give him a little nod. He thought that was hilarious. But so Zamboni, yeah, another Jake Gensel maybe.
Nice. That would be great.
Yeah. 6th round. So their 2 6th-round picks, kind of interesting. These are the only other picks they had. They traded their 7th to Florida, was it, for another 7th-round pick next year. So Nolan Collins, this is a pick they traded to get this pick so they could pick him. They wanted Nolan Collins. They traded a prospect, Liam Gorman, Princeton. I want to say he was a sophomore or junior. I don't know with COVID. Honestly, the least interesting notable prospect in the entire system. Like it could not have been a better prospect to be moved. Like Liam Gorman, the least interesting guy in the system. So he's gone. They sent him to Chicago, and they got this pick to pick Nolan Collins, who is another big defenseman, 6'3", 193 pounds. He's another guy who moves well for his size. And he's like good offensively. He's gritty, physical. So he models his game after Josh Manson. Is what he told me, which is Josh Manson, another 6th-round pick, like picked right around where Collins was. So
okay,
a good pick to have. He's Sudbury in the OHL, so again, probably another 2 years before we even see him go pro. He has time to develop. And then the last one in the 6th round was a forward, Luke Devlin. They picked him out of high school in Canada, which I feel like you never see guys drafted out of high school in Canada. He's playing in the BCHL next year, which is like a lower level junior league, British Columbia.
Okay.
Then he's going to Cornell in 2023. So fills the void of losing Anthony Angelo. They always have to have a tall Cornell guy in the system. Before Anthony Angelo, they had like Christian Hilberg, Alex Rauter.
Oh my gosh, they have a type for sure at each position.
They've had a tall Cornell forward in the system for the last like 5 years. But so yeah, Angelo's gone. He signed in St. Louis. But so they got another tall Cornell forward in Luke Devlin. He's a center. He's another guy. I feel like every tall guy they pick, they say he moves well for his size. But the big thing with him, compete level. I read a scouting report, a scout that scouted, his high school games, and they called him old school tough, really tough. Loves to initiate contact. He's a bully, good net front guy in the power play. Uses his frame.
Okay.
So Another interesting pick. I mean, once you're getting into these late rounds, it is kind of a crapshoot anyway.
Yeah.
But it seems like they made a concerted effort to add some size and pick some bigger, other
Good.
Zamboni plant, but it's 5'9". But they picked some big guys, so and physical tough guys that use that size. So interesting, kind of fills a void in the Penguins system. Nolan Collins also right-handed, which fills a void in the system. Honestly, he might be the best right-handed defense prospect in the system other than Colin Sawyer right now. So I don't know. I like the picks they made. I think I still wish maybe that we would have seen what would have happened if Miroshnichenko would have been available, but the picks they made.
Yeah.
I think they filled a lot of holes and guys that could be good long-term projects.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. It was a good draft class and definitely lots to look forward to. And things are going to start happening where are we? Mid-July, end of July. Like we're getting close to training camp and we're 2 months away from the preseason. So things are going to start happening really, really quickly now. So it's going to be a wild ride and it's going to be a lot of fun, but make sure all of you are subscribed wherever it is you listen to podcasts so that you don't miss anything, because again, it's going to get crazy here soon. But thanks for listening. As always, we are on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube too. So if you want to subscribe there to our channel, you absolutely can. We drop new episodes every Thursday. So we will see you next week.